Hi, everyone from all over the country. I wish I could see everyone's beautiful faces. But again, if you have any questions, any thoughts, please continue to throw them in the chat and hopefully we'll get to them. As we said, my name is Alex. I'm a registered dietitian with Culina Health. I see a wide variety of patients day in and day out, anywhere from just general healthy eating. Hey, how do I live a healthy lifestyle? To preventing chronic disease, to heart health, to relationship with food. So I love food. That's why I made it my career. And I love talking about how to be passionate about living a healthy lifestyle. So we at Culina are just so grateful to be having this conversation today of, hey, how do we approach the holidays? How do we approach drinking? How do we maintain healthy habits? So again, we're grateful for this conversation today. Awesome. So hopefully I can figure out, we can click to the next slide. Great. Okay. So here's the rough outline for today. And again, we're going to send you this information on the docs and of course the recording. So hopefully this can be a fun lunch break where you can sit back, relax, listen to our conversation. The general outline for today is we're going to run through why we drink alcohol, have a little bit of a quick discussion. We're then going to kind of walk through the effect alcohol has on our body, whether that's the impact it has on our body or how it could benefit our body by decreasing our intake. We're going to walk through just how to approach mindful drinking, especially with the holidays coming up and all the events and parties. I'm going to talk about some of my favorite non-alcoholic swaps, and hopefully you all have some of yours. And then overall, if I have healthy habits I want to continue, if I have wellness habits I want to continue, how do I do that throughout the holidays? So we're going to chat through that in general of kind of a broader conversation. And then hopefully at the end, we'll have some more Q&A again. All right, so let's jump into our conversation. So if you don't mind putting into the chat, and I'm going to read aloud your answers. But if we think about in general, why do we drink alcohol? Why in general throughout your lifetime do you reach for an alcoholic drink? And I'll read aloud. Okay, yeah, I see stress relief, maybe the atmosphere you're in, socializing. Okay, definitely social. Hanging out with friends, family. What about culture or religion? Is that sometimes a reason for drinking alcohol? All right, so then my next question in the chat, how do you feel about drinking alcohol during the holidays? So when you think about this upcoming holiday season, how do you feel about approaching alcohol? How do you feel about, is it going to be a new type of season? Is it going to be a new perspective? So how, if you don't mind dropping in the chat, yeah, how do you maybe feel? Okay, yeah, maybe some feelings of feeling stressed. Maybe you're excited about this new holiday season to maybe learn, hey, how do I maintain a balance? Okay, some people feel like this upcoming season is going to feel like a marathon. It's okay, I have 10 parties, I have all these different events. What do I do? For sure. No, you're valid. You're so valid in that. All right, so let's quickly talk about what alcohol does in our body, the effect it has on our body. When I think about alcohol in our body, I kind of think about it from a systems perspective. So let's start with our brain. Let's go up to our brain. Unlike other nutrients, carbs, protein, fat, those nutrients need help to be absorbed. Alcohol is kind of selfish and doesn't really need any help. So alcohol can cross over our blood-brain barrier and goes directly into circulation. You drink it, goes directly into circulation. So when I think about the effect that alcohol can have in our body is the really, really, really strong impact it can have on sleeping habits. So what alcohol does is it disrupts your sleeping patterns with the quality and the quantity. And related to that can often come with brain fog. And so also with alcohol, we need to talk about our liver. So our liver is just this like wonderful, awesome organ that is part of so many different processes. And so when alcohol enters into our liver, something that's interesting to note is like a byproduct of alcohol metabolism and like the breakdown of alcohol is the production of cholesterol, or let's say like fat molecules. So it can also lead to elevating our lipid panels, or if you get your annual physical and the lipid panel is high, well, one of the tactics and one of the things that I talk about a lot with my patients is like, what's your relationship with alcohol like? And so alcohol can really impact lipid production or fat production. Something I like to also talk about with alcohol metabolism is energy. So we think about energy or calories, but alcohol has energy in it or calories. If your body doesn't need that excess energy, it's going to want to store it. It's going to be like, oh, I'm going to save this for later. Well, that can end up leading to fat or that energy being deposited around our organs. And again, when we think about preventing chronic disease, we really, really want to prevent that fat or buildup around our organs. I love this. One of the questions from one of the registrants was about the impact alcohol can have on our digestive tract. Well, when you consume alcohol, it can disrupt that balance with our good bacteria in our digestive tract. So that good bacteria is super, super important in maintaining our immune system and our digestive function and regularity. So if you're someone that really, really has like, all right, I need to work on my regularity, maybe focus more on my immune system, maybe start thinking about your relationship with alcohol. And then my last point here, or a couple points, is alcohol really increases like acid in the stomach. So if you ever experience like acid reflux or just some of that like acid or burping, alcohol can contribute to that. So again, if any thoughts or questions related to that, let me know and drop it in the chat. All right, so let's quickly touch on the benefits or what you could experience from decreasing your alcohol intake. So some of my favorites here I like to talk about are just improved connection with your hunger cues the next day. So for example, say you drank a little bit heavier the night before, you might feel a little bit more confused the next day of like, am I hungrier? Am I craving? Like, am I having more intense cravings? A lot of that is related to the alcohol and the impact it has on our sleep and our brain health. So it's kind of like this domino effect. Some of the other big ticket items I like to talk about with my patients is the benefit of decreasing alcohol intake to support blood pressure, to support heart health, and to support long-term prevention of chronic disease. So here are some of my favorites. And the last thing I'll say of decreasing your alcohol, no hangovers. So if you're someone that really wants to have a productive day, or you're just someone who's like, all right, I'm going to try and get back into exercise, decreasing your alcohol intake will really support that goal of being like, hey, I'm really going to take this walk. Because if I drank a lot the night before or throughout the day, I'm going to feel less motivated to go for this walk that I'm trying to prioritize. Okay, so let's jump into the tips. This is why you're all here. So my first tip, let's like kind of walk through this kind of motion together, is having a loose plan in mind. So if you think about the next 2 months of your life, or the next, maybe it's like a month and a half, looking ahead and having a rough idea of like what's going on. Because I don't know about you, but I can get to the weekend and be like, whoa, I had like 4 Friendsgiving this past week and I didn't even think about it. So having a loose plan in mind helps you become more aware of like, hey, what's going on in my life and how can I maybe start to balance it out? Zooming in on each plan or each, maybe say like holiday event, what's really helpful is just asking yourself, how do I want my evening to go? How do I want this event to go? How do I want to feel? So just as like initial pause before going in can really help you be successful long term. And again, let's say you have a loose plan in mind, and within that loose plan is maybe like a drink count. So let's say you go into this work event or work happy hour and you're like, all right, I'm going to try and have 2 drinks. I like to put here the hairband trick. So say, for example, you start with your first drink on your left hand. So you have your first drink, you're talking, maybe it gets confusing to keep track of how many drinks you're having. You can move the wristband or the hairband to your right hand. And then that means you finished your first, you're on to your second. But once it's on the right hand, you've had your second. So that's like the hairband trick if you're like out and about or it's hard to remember. And then having a loose plan in mind could also look like pre-planning for any travel. Let's say you're going to travel for the holidays. You want to maybe be a little bit more mindful of your drinking. Is there anything you could mail to the house? Is there anything that you could maybe ask somebody, a friend or a family member to like pick up ingredients for? So again, roughly having a loose plan in mind is my big one. Acknowledging your environment is super important. So just asking yourself, like, what's going to be the situation? Are most people going to be drinking? Are there going to be some people that aren't drinking? It's really helpful. One of my favorite tips for mindful drinking is asking yourself, what do you truly want? So I don't know about you, I'm in Virginia, but my airport, I think, has like an Applebee's or maybe it's like a Chili's. And so if you're traveling and you're someone that likes to get drinks while you're at the airport, is that restaurant's alcohol really what you want? Like, is it that nice glass of red wine? Or could you maybe skip that cocktail and really save it for a drink that you're really excited to have with your family? So a tip about approaching all of these events is asking yourself, like, what do I truly want and like? Like some people, they have multiple work events and they know, hey, is the alcohol going to be that good? Am I going to really like this drink or not? Asking yourself that question before you go will really help being like, I actually don't really like it. This will kind of bleed into some of our conversations with eating, but I think both applies. It's just like, what do you truly want? And that being like the driving factor of like, I actually don't like this, so I'm just going to maybe wait. Okay. So here are my other tips. Again, we're going to send this doc out. So if you don't get to everything, then you can like look back on it. But some of my favorite things, I don't know if anyone experiences the pressure to hold something in their hand. So one of my favorite tips is when you're going to all these different holiday events or socials or parties, is to when you first arrive, rather than like going straight to the bar, take 5 to 10 minutes to pause. Maybe like recognize or acknowledge, like, wow, this is like a beautiful building, or oh, that's like my favorite coworker. Oh, okay, maybe I'm gonna like go put my coat up instead of being used to like going to the bar right away. Taking that pause helps ease some of that initial pressure to have something in your hand. And then when you want something initially in your hand, maybe that's an opportunity to grab like a club soda or to grab something like really quickly that's seltzer water or a regular water. Again, gives you a little bit more time to like kind of bring that awareness to your body. Um, some of my other favorites, which this could be helpful for traveling, would be like BYOM, so bring your own mocktail. So if you're traveling, maybe ship something, maybe pick something up when you're going to the grocery store, when once you arrive, um, or something that's like kind of half drinking, half not drinking, would be to ask for half wine, half seltzer water to make your own spritzer, or consider like participating in maybe like the champagne toast so that you feel like you could be part of it, and then maybe grabbing a non-alcoholic drink. So both of those recommendations would still be mindful because you're still being intentional, decreasing that alcohol intake. And I will say this to anyone and everyone, if you are going to choose to drink alcohol, please promise me you'll eat something. So if you're going straight from work to a happy hour or to a Christmas party or a holiday party or a Thanksgiving, make sure that you maybe either pack a snack or you eat dinner before so that you go in feeling supported to help your body be able to process that alcohol. Okay. So here are some of my favorites. I know that these are a lot, but I wanted to include a lot of variety. So there are so many different brands out there, and I didn't even include like there's a non-alcoholic gin that I really like, which is like I think the starts with like a wild something. But my trusty original non-alcoholic favorite drink is like a club soda with lime. So most people are surprised when you get to a restaurant, they actually always have it, or a bar, because there's always a club soda tap. So I love always asking for a club soda with lime with like initial like drink of choice for the evening. Some of my other favorites are Athletic Brewing, the company. So Athletic Brewing has non-alcoholic beers, but if you're someone who is gluten-free, they have Athletic Brewing Hoppy Water, which is kind of like a White Claw alternative or non-alcoholic White Claw, which is amazing. There are non-alcoholic wines and non-alcoholic canned cocktails, which I appreciate, especially the canned cocktails because they're a lot less like added sugar than maybe like your standard cocktail or recipe that maybe is made with simple syrup. And then always with if you're traveling, like throw a couple of like tea bags. Like I always have tea bags around. You can bring those with you wherever you're traveling. You can kind of make a big batch, cool it, ice it, and that can also be a non-alcoholic swap, especially with traveling where you can't really carry a lot of ingredients. Okay, so let's move on to food. I know that approaching the holidays and the meals that come up with the holidays can feel really overwhelming if you're someone that wants to prioritize health and wellness because it is a really fun and exciting meal. And I don't know out of this group how many people have had the perspective or the mentality like, I need to save my calories for this meal. So, like, for example, Thanksgiving, like, I cannot eat all day because I need to save my calories. So, in my clinical experience working as a dietitian, that can be really, really harmful. Or not, I guess harmful is dramatic, but it can be really hard for your goals because what happens is you're so hungry. You go into the meal just so ravenous. You eat really fast. You eat a lot more than what you probably would. And then the fun's over. You eat so fast and then the meal's over. Versus if you eat regularly, maybe you're having a 3, 4 p.m. meal and so you say, I'm going to prioritize breakfast. I'm really going to maybe prioritize lunch. And if I don't really feel like eating lunch, I'm going to at least have a snack. So you prioritize eating consistently throughout the day, which then supports your hunger level going into that larger meal, going into that fun meal, which then again gives you the opportunity to connect with how your body's feeling. So, you know how we talked about prioritizing your favorite drinks as a mindful tip? Well, for food, really trying to prioritize your favorites. So, what's really important here is asking yourself, what do I like? Like for me personally, I can have mashed potatoes anytime, anywhere, but I don't always get stuffing all year long. So, I really want the stuffing. Or, for example, for me, I don't love cheese cubes as an appetizer, or say my work or your friends are putting out a cheese plate with cheese cubes. But if someone pulls out the like baked brie with bread and it's like a crusty sauce, that's amazing. I don't ever really get to have that because it's not really in my routine. So what's really helpful is prioritizing your favorites. Within prioritizing your favorites and also not restricting your intake throughout that day, it's going to really help to connect with portion control. So I like to tell my patients that I work with, no matter where you go in this world, you will bring your stomach and your brain with you. So no matter where you are with your holiday eating and your parties, you can connect with when you feel full. So when you slow down, you connect with the meal and you recognize you feel full, that's an opportunity to kind of regroup, check in with yourself. And here are some of my like last tips. So again, with not restricting your intake throughout the day, I really encourage you to stick with your daily routine. So let's say your daily routine involves staying hydrated. Can you pack a water bottle with you on the trip? Can you bring a water bottle with you to the Thanksgiving meal, to the holiday work event? Maybe not the work event, but maybe you could ask for a glass of water when you get there to continue focusing on your daily routine. Maybe your daily routine involves movement. How can you fight for some movement throughout the trip, throughout the experience, throughout the holiday season to really continue your daily habits? Again, my last thing is like moving on. So this is such an important special season, but every single meal and snack in your life is a new opportunity for a new decision. So an overeating or specific meal that maybe you would think is X, Y, or Z, that doesn't make like mess you up. It doesn't cause anything negative towards your healthy lifestyle. And so my encouragement to you would be enjoy, be present with the season, and then wake up the next day and be like, all right, how am I taking care of myself? And kind of moving forward. And so lastly, before we kind of jump into our Q&A, you're taking time to be here today. And so my encouragement to you would be maybe choose a couple of goals that maybe stood out to you from today. So maybe it was to avoid skipping meals and snacks before the event. So maybe you want to practice focusing on eating consistently before going into events. Well, after the events, I encourage you to reflect back on it and see how that went. Again, you need to show your brain more evidence that it is possible to have balance throughout the season. And then lastly, I will always encourage you, no matter what, if you do need extra support, please take it. That can include calling like a helpline. It can include talking to your doctor about it. It can also be like adding a therapist into your routine and also maybe adding a dietitian. If anything resonated with you today, whether it was eating or drinking, that's something that I talk about with my patients probably almost every day. Okay, I know that that was so quick, and I wish that we could have more time, but I'd love to answer any of your questions.
That was so awesome, Alex. Thank you so much. I that really made me want to go and get a non-alcoholic drink immediately. But we did have some questions here that are starting to come in from our attendees. One of them is, what is advice that you would have for people who might be working with, a few dietary restrictions and like going into environments where, they might not always be in control of what's being served and what's available.
For sure. No, and that can be daunting because you're kind of like, hey, like what's in this food or what's in this meal? I don't know what your holiday season might look like, but what is possible is what could you bring with you? So like what could you maybe like ask to bring with you that you could make that maybe has some of your like dietary um eating pattern like respected in? Like what recipes could you have that respects that? And what could you ask to like maybe pick up or bring while you're there? And then if you are sugar free, a lot of the drinks that I talked about, like we can like go back to it or in the deck. For example, like the club soda with lime is like sugar free, or like the hoppy waters are sugar free. So maybe again, what can you bring with you? And I know that that can be hard depending on how you're traveling or where you're going. What can you make? What could you pick up there?
And there was a question about the hairband trick and whether you could explain that again.
Yeah, I love this. So sometimes going to holiday events can feel like really overwhelming, like mentally. And so it can be hard to kind of keep track of even like what you're doing. So if you, for example, are trying to drink less at work events and you kind of want to go in with a certain number of drinks in mind. So say, for example, that's 2 drinks at this work happy hour, or it's 1 drink at this work happy hour. You put a hairband on your left wrist for the first drink, and once you finish that first drink, you move the hairband to your right wrist. And then once you finish that second drink, you know the hairband's on your right wrist, and you kind of are aware of like, all right, roughly this is how much I've had. So it kind of gives you a physical support system and a check-in with yourself in the midst of a lot of like movement and chaos.
Wonderful. And just another question here, Alex, that came up in the registration forms. I know you talked a bit about slowing down during a meal and recognizing your hunger fullness cues. Can you talk a little bit more about practical tips or tactics to slow down during a meal so that people can recognize how full they are?
Yeah. So kind of recognizing how full you are takes time. It really takes time. So your brain and your stomach, I say roughly need maybe 20 minutes to communicate. And I don't know about you, but it's really easy to eat fast, especially with all of this fun food that comes around the season. So during the meal, First, it's going to help if you ate consistently. Because again, if you go in too hungry, it's going to be really hard to eat slow. So if you eat consistently throughout the day, and then during the meal, I know it sounds weird, but really putting your utensil down in between bites is really helpful to slow down. Chewing your food fully, swallowing, then picking your utensil back up, making your other bite. My last tip would be, I don't know if anyone realizes how often they're maybe sitting forward or sitting over their plate. But sitting back in your chair and that pressure on your back is like a nice check-in reminder of like, all right, I'm slowing down, I'm connecting with this food. And then lastly, another helpful like tactic to slowing down would be asking people questions. Like the holiday season is fun to like be around friends, family, any type of loved ones. And so using almost like asking someone a question as a way to be like, I'm putting like a pause for a hot sec on my eating.
Yeah, great. The another question that we have here is when I see someone taking a lot of food at once, I always feel very anxious and worried that the food that I want to eat will be gone and I can't focus on the food on the plate at the moment. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, that's real. That's real, especially with a lot of siblings. You're kind of like fighting to have like what you want. I would say that's really hard. Honestly, a couple of ideas I have in mind. So the first could be how I don't know in the food dynamics like that you specifically have, but maybe putting some of the things that you really like first on your plate that you like are really, really hopeful to have. So have that first, eat it slowly, eat it mindfully, and then you can always go back for the other things that were maybe the filler items. Like again, say you're really excited to have someone's like special like corn pudding or corn casserole or stuffing, grab that first. You know there's always going to maybe be a turkey or a ham or some type of main course. So start with what you love first, eat it mindfully, slowly. That gives you the chance to connect with it. Maybe go back for others. And then also maybe you could make a Tupperware container as you make your plate.
Yeah. And I know we're just about coming up on time. Alex, do you have any last tips for anyone who doesn't want to like how to manage the pressure to drink like during the holidays, when you're around everyone else who's also drinking?
Yeah, that it's so true. Like the pressure, kind of the environment. So acknowledging that you will feel that pressure and that stress is important, kind of just like maybe preparing yourself a little bit mentally. And a couple of tips would be like, do you have to do it alone? So is there a friend? Is there a partner? Is there a family member? Is there a coworker that maybe you could talk about like, hey, I'm feeling this pressure. This is something I really want to focus on decreasing my alcohol. Um, Not in a way, can you support me, but can you like know about it? And like, would you be willing to do this with me? And so having like a tag team or a buddy, if not in person, maybe that's virtually, maybe that's someone that you could like text or someone that checks in with you. Outside of that, giving yourself the chance to maybe breathe during those events. So like I said, maybe go directly to grab like a club soda with a lime, give yourself some chance to like breathe to be around it. And then hopefully as like you have something in your hand, the night will go on and people are kind of only thinking about themselves. And so as you're taking care of yourself, that's what's the most important thing, taking care of your body. And then the next day, reflect back on it because again, you need to show your brain enough evidence to believe that it's possible. So if, for example, you wrote that goal down in your notes app, you reflect back on the event, be like, okay, I actually felt a little less pressure this time. And that's more encouragement to keep practicing it.
Yeah, that's great advice. I like the idea of the buddy system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's so true that as the night goes on, people stop worrying about what everyone else around them is doing, and then there's less pressure on you.
Yeah. Well, they're just like drinking more, and you're like, oh, go have a
Yeah,
good night's sleep.
yeah. That's really great. All right, everyone, we are at time, so we have to end the webinar here, but this was really great. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time, and we hope you learned something that can help you, manage your health goals over the holiday season. We will be sharing the recording and slides after this, as well as contact information. So if you have any further questions, you can always get in touch with us. Thank you so
Great.
much. Enjoy the rest of your day.